patriarchs and prophets. And as I read, Ellen White says a lot about the Exodus, and I chose a couple, maybe 2 or 3 areas where I think my heart was touched. I could really relate to it, and hopefully you also can relate to those I have chosen, the points that I have chosen. And Ellen White is so good in starting the chapter because a few paragraphs down from the start, she talked about how God knew what was going to happen. And in Genesis chapter 15, 13 and 14, the Lord actually said that the travel to Egypt, the bondage in Egypt, the slavery was going to take place, and also the fact that they were going out, that the Lord would bring them out there. I'd like to read from the King James Version, which she quoted, "Thy seed shall be a stranger." The Lord was talking to Abraham, "in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance." I think that would be a summary, okay, a preview of Exodus according to Ellen White's thinking in the inspiration she had actually received. And so we can see here that from the very start, Ellen White was saying that in all of these things, God was in control. Not that he predicted it, he knew. We don't believe in predestination. We believe in foreknowledge. The Lord knew what was going to happen, and therefore he told it to Abraham. And now Ellen White presents it just as it was prophesied or predicted by God. And then she talks about how many left Egypt, about 6,000 on foot, men besides children, and I believe also women. And then she talks about a mixed multitude. The Bible just says there was a multitude that joined them, a mixed multitude that joined them after they came, the Bible is saying, after they went to their neighbors and asked for gold and silver and things they could actually bring on their journey. But Ellen White actually expands on that, and when she said, "In this multitude were not only those who were actuated by faith in the God of Israel, but also a far greater number who desired only to escape the plagues, from the plagues, or who followed in the wake of the moving multitudes, merely from excitement and curiosity." That's surprising. The Bible never says that, but Ellen White adds that. It expands what was going on. And then she said, "This class were ever a hindrance and a snare to Israel." You see, I believe that most of the stories in the Bible are blueprints, paradigms for the Christian journey that we're all doing today, spiritual Israel. And I believe that in a way, this can be true in our journey right now. And sadly, our church, the Bible, the Gospels talk about the wheat and the tares. when the farmers of God, of the good farm, of the good husbandman planted, the enemy also planted some tares. And so here, even as early as this part, we are told that there were people who joined this journey, not because of faith, but some of them because of fear, which may be good, fear of what would happen to them if they stayed in Egypt, maybe knowing that Egypt was going into a disaster after that. They were in a disaster with the death of the firstborn, but maybe they thought that worse could happen in the future, so they left. But there were people who joined just from excitement and curiosity. And the problem was it became a snare to Israel. Could it be that in our journey today, there may be some tares in our midst, hopefully not in this congregation right now, who can actually be a snare, a hindrance to the progress of our work. Well, that's for us to decide, that's for God to decide, as long as we remain faithful to our calling. And then the third part that Ellen White mentions is that the Lord diverted them from the quickest route to Canaan, because the Lord did not want them to encounter the warlike Philistines who could actually be a threat to them in their journey. And she says here that if they went that route, it could be shorter to Canaan, and yet in the face of these Philistines who knew them as slaves, and because they were slaves, they looked at the Israelites in their thoughts as second-class citizens, maybe unworthy to survive, to be alive. The Lord put them on a longer journey so that they could avoid the threat and the dangers of meeting or going through the land of the Philistines. And again, because we are in a Christian journey, sometimes individually or maybe as a church, the Lord allows us to go on a longer route. Each of us individually can actually relate to that, of how that happened in our lives. If we have a lot of time, I can tell you personal stories of what happened to me in my quest for some personal things in my life. I could go quickly to some things, and I don't know I know you don't want to listen to that, but the Lord brought me through a longer route. Okay. Now let me go to the next part. Okay. In Egypt, she says, the report was spread that the children of Israel, instead of tarrying to worship in the desert, were pressing onward toward the sea. Now, if you will notice in the Bible, in Exodus, the main appeal of Moses to Pharaoh was that, let my people go so that we will worship our God in the wilderness. Now, my Old Testament professor was telling us when he was discussing this, that this was some kind of a bargaining. Moses did not tell Pharaoh everything that he wanted the Israelites to do. In fact, where were they going? They're going to Canaan. But all he said to them was that we're going to worship the Lord in the wilderness. And in the mind of the Egyptians, I'm sure, they thought that they would come back after worshiping. And when they went toward the Red Sea, they knew, they found out that they would actually leave for good. And so they panicked. They began to say that they will be missing all of the labors that they were doing for us for free. So let's go over them, and if we cannot bring them back, let us actually kill them. And so this is another idea that I got that is important for us to understand. Because as we read through Exodus, even in the coming of the 10 plagues, over and over again, the Bible says, God hardened the heart of Pharaoh. Now, that's something that scholars are debating what that really means, you know. I think 8 out of 10 times in the process of the 10 plagues, the Bible says, and God hardened the heart of Pharaoh. Even God said, I will harden his heart. And again, in the pursuit of the Israelites, after Pharaoh discovered that they were going to live for good, the Lord also said, the Bible also says, that the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh. And why did God harden the heart of Pharaoh? Whether we take that to be literal or maybe symbolic or maybe a different way of looking at it, scholars are discussing it. But the point is, God wanted Egypt to know him from the beginning. And even in this pursuit, God wanted to tell them that they were making a mistake, and as they actually were doing what they were not supposed to do because Pharaoh allowed them to live in the first place, changed his mind, that he was going to pay for it. So all through this story, we know that God was in control. God was actually doing things for the Israelites and through the Israelites, so that Egypt, the Egyptians, would know about him, acknowledge him, and of course the whole world should acknowledge him. And so the lesson that Ellen White actually tells us, as I wind up this, we'd like to have more time in interaction. She says, the great lesson here taught is for all time. Often the Christian life is beset by dangers, and duty seems hard to perform. The imagination pictures impending ruin before, and bondage or death behind. Yet, the voice of God speaks clearly, go forward. We should obey this command, even though our eyes cannot penetrate the darkness, and we feel the cold waves above our feet. The obstacles that hinder our progress will never disappear before a halting, doubting spirit. Those who defer obedience till every shadow of uncertainty disappears, and there remains no risk of failure or defeat, will never obey at all. Unbelief whispers, let us wait till the obstructions are removed, and we can see our way clearly. But faith courageously urges an advance, hoping all things, believing all things. Now, before we go into the interaction, let me tell you a short story to emphasize what I feel Ellen White is trying to tell us right now. When George W.H. Bush was campaigning for his re-election, which he eventually lost to Bill Clinton, we know that, they were traveling, according to the story, in the countryside of Texas. And as they were driving with the presidential limousine ahead and several other Secret Service limousines following, the driver said, sir, Mr. President, we're running low on gas. Where do we get gas out of in this place out of nowhere, away from the cities? And the president said, let me call on the helicopter from the White House. And the driver said, sir, that will take 3 hours. Barbara, according to the story, said, oh, don't worry. I know this place. I grew up here. Just drive a couple more miles. Turn left when you see a dirt road. At the end of the dirt road is a service station. They did. They went and saw the service station. And so when the attendant came out with his overalls, he began filling up the limousine. Barbara said, honey, let me go out. I know this guy. Let me greet him. And so she went out. Secret Service surrounded her. And then they hugged. They talked for a little while. The limousine was filled up. She went back. They began driving. The president said, who was that? Oh, honey, that was my childhood sweetheart. And according to the story, the president bragged, imagine, you're married to the most powerful man in the world. If you didn't meet me, you would have been married to a gas station attendant. And Barbara said, don't be silly, George. If I married him, he'd be president. God is in control. We are not. Okay? Do we have time? Okay, anybody would like to say anything? I'm sure that some of you have read through. I did too, and you may have encountered some points that I did not mention. And let's discuss it. And yes, please. Yes, I keep forgetting your name. Gina, yes. We grew up together in Bagong Barrio. She's younger than me, no. Much.
Okay, so, Pastor, with regards to what you mentioned regarding God, He led, and the way that He led Israelites to is the longer way, so it's a shortcut. One thing that is one reason is, of course, because they are not ready. They still have to be taught. So in our case, sometimes the journey was long for us so that we would
thank you so much for mentioning that, because I only mentioned the dangers, but God had another purpose. God usually uses lengthens our journey, because we have still a lot to learn. Thank you, Gina. Any other comments, please? At least we have one comment. Okay. I think that's it. Let me give the time now to our lady in charge for the seasonal prayer. Thank you so much for your attention.
I was trying to find a mic so that people will have to. Reflections. One more reflection that I would like to consider is the money. I feel the money. Right? Yeah. We cannot hear it. You Pastor G, can you hear it? We cannot hear it. Oh, you cannot hear it. Oh, okay. One thing that I also would like to reflect on is the mixed multitude. They cause a lot of trouble to Israel. I think they're the ones who actually influence the Israelites to complain so much, right? Even and also probably pressured many of the Israelites to, when they were already in Mount Sinai, to tell Aaron, where's our God? Okay, let's build this one. And so they provided, they